Franchisor Zoom with Matt and Jennifer Lucas at the franchising company. Today we're going to be talking with Peter from 1-800 Plumber and Air. And just as a reminder, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. We bring a new, franchisor interview to you each and every week. But with all that said, Peter, if you don't mind, just briefly introduce yourself. Give us that 30-second elevator pitch.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on. My name is Peter Kourounis. I'm the Director of Franchise Development here with 1-800 Plumber Plus Air, the country's fastest growing plumbing and HVAC company, all inside of one business model there. That's usually our go-to hot point here that most people are very interested in. We have a very strategic approach, and I'm sure we'll get into that here as we go along. As far as what 1-800 Plumber Plus Air is setting its sails to do is really change the dynamic of the stigma of home services in general, and specifically plumbing and HVAC. As if you have not had a bad experience with a plumber or an HVAC company in the past, you probably know somebody that has, and that is a common and national problem that we're trying to solve and fix for. We feel like we have a very strong brand position that allows us to do that. And that's usually what we talk first with our franchisees to make sure that they first feel that connection within the home services industry.
I will say one of the things that draws me the most to your brand is that it's two franchises in one. I feel like we have a really good response to a lot of home service options, but there's two in one. So how did that come about? Why did you bundle it like that?
Yeah, it was done strategically with a number of ideas in mind. We started as 1-800 Plumber, so let's first start that. Our franchising career was launched with just the 1-800 Plumber brand. We test piloted the Plus Air portion of the industry for about two plus years before relaunching the franchise with the combination of services. The intent behind the combination was done with just a little bit of a different mindset that our franchising organization believes in. Now, in franchising, and I'm not here to say anything negative about anybody, so I don't want anybody to take this that way, but we can get caught up in unit count and how many territories that you have, and our belief is we want large owners. We want large enterprise owners here. That doesn't necessarily mean we want 400, 500 owners and dots on the map. We believe in having a very strong group of owners that are able to build multi-million-dollar locations in an MSA, in service areas like Atlanta and Florida and all over Florida and up and down in the East Coast as well. With that ideology in mind, our premise has been, well, we can do that with plumbing, and you certainly have your fair share of plumbing organizations that are multi-million-dollar organizations, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have even larger if you layer in the HVAC side on top of a pretty consistent vertical, which is plumbing all year round. So now you're looking at a one or potentially two territory owner that can build something quite significant with those combination of services. So just with the mindset of what we're looking for in terms of our vision, we don't really want 500 owners. We'd love 200 owners that are very large in enterprise building. We want to be able to penetrate that market deeper. How do you do, and not necessarily wider? We can actually scale into other territories by virtue of just our services that we provide. So when we look at a major service area, say like Atlanta, and by virtue of our FDD and what our territory parameters are, you could probably fit about 9 to 11 franchise owners in that market. And that's just not our vision. We don't want that. We want 3, 4 people in that market that can build something pretty large and significant. So adding in the HVAC side was done intentional with that thought in mind. But as we've gotten more years under the belt with HVAC being layered in with plumbing, you can easily see the connection between the two services and how our owners are now able to cross-sell a plumbing customer into an HVAC customer quite easily, and vice versa, mind you. And we do that through our membership plan. So while we are the only franchise that combines these two industries in one franchise model, we're also the one franchise that has a recurring revenue model that connects those two verticals with any given customer. So when we're going into our trainings and we're going into all of that, the nuances of how to operate inside of someone's home, our membership is one of those areas that we talk about quite a bit. What that membership gives our customers is 3 preventative maintenance inspections throughout the year, along with some discounts and preferred scheduling, some other nuances and benefits there. But for $16 a month, basically, uh, probably the least expensive thing that we can sell to a customer is our membership plan. And now when we sell a membership plan to somebody that had like a shower valve issue or possibly a toilet issue or a leaking issue, we're we're servicing their heating and their air conditioning utilities throughout the year. So those 3 preventative maintenance inspections gets 1-800 Plumber Plus Air in their home 3 more times a year, and that's a little bit more of the penetrating your territory deeper rather than wider ideology.
So
Well,
smart.
not just getting inside of that customer's home, but they're in a neighborhood. That's 3 times a year that neighbors are going to see your van parked out in front of that neighbor's home, and that's just going to increase brand awareness as well.
Yeah, I often tell a candidate in their first year when they ask like, "What does the first year look like?" I say, "Well, look, there's a number of factors that are going to go into that, but one of the ones that I care about the most, and I say this quite often, is if you sell 100 memberships in your first year, you start year 2 with 300 appointments on the book. And what does year 2 look like if you sell another 100 memberships? That's going to make year 3 look even better. So that's when you frame it like that, and you really kind of put that in a franchisee's mind that memberships are that important, they can easily start to see the benefit of having HVAC and plumbing inside of their one business.
I love home
So smart.
services, and I love the fact that you can bring in reoccurring revenue, that you can count on, right? I mean, obviously, in plumbing and HVAC, while it's not reoccurring revenue, you've got plenty of demand on a regular basis throughout the year. But when you've got that every month, hey, I'm starting with 1,600 or 16,000 or 30,000, I mean,
Yep.
however big you grow that membership, that's really nice to start each month with that amount of revenue coming in before you have your first appointment.
And on that note, I think the last stat that I have from your website is that the average owner has an average volume of over $2 million. So
Yep.
no joke. So
No, it's no joke. I mean, yeah, that is a very interesting statistic because but every year I've been here, that number has gone up. So I've been with the company now 5 years. That number was originally 1.2 million, and it's grown now, getting over that $2 million mark for sure.
So getting into kind of some of the nuts and bolts, because one of the things that we hear on our end when talking to candidates, looking at a trade type of service is licensing, right? That's always the biggest question, the biggest hurdle. So how do you guys help your candidates that are not licensed plumbers or licensed HVAC technicians? Kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, quite easily could be top 2 questions that I get even on the very first intro call. It's an important question for almost anyone because they're not even sure what the industry requires. And when we talk about that professional license, both on the plumbing and HVAC side, there are 2 different types of thoughts to that. Usually, they're candidates that are going to look at that and say, "Okay, we have it figured out, and we can help, and we can get that squared away." And then there are others that look at that and say they're scared off by it because it's an added expense and it's an extra barrier to profitability. But the reality is that you can't own a plumbing or trades business without these trades licenses. These professional licenses are done mostly at the individual level. So they're not business licenses well, I can't say that in every state, but for the majority of the states, they are professional licenses for the individual. So when your candidate comes from a white collar space or potentially even a blue collar space and wants to jump into the trades, that professional license needs to be secured in some way, and secured on a contract basis. They need some stability. They need some stability. They need some comfort knowing that that license is going to be there no matter what day of the week they wake up on. So with that comes some processes that we have in place for securing that license holder with a candidate. Now that happens in many different buckets. I can't say that it's just one bucket that we rely on, because we have many different ways that that happens. Ways that start from just grassrooted approach of putting an ad in the paper and putting an ad on Indeed. And yes, some places do paper ads still, and that does work because it is a requirement in some states. But yeah, that grassroots approach will stir up a conversation between you or our franchise owner and that candidate, that potential master plumber or master mechanical engineer, whoever has that license. What we ask for is that for that to be a contract basis, a 1-year renewal contract that gives the franchisee some stability. Average compensation for something like that is anywhere from, say, $300 to $500 a week. But it is a paper transaction. I don't want to get that confused. And I do pretty much frame it as we are renting somebody else's license, although there is definitely a more technical term to it. Most people can relate to I'm renting this person's license for my business, and that makes it a little bit more easier to understand. There's a contract. There's stability. If this person were to quit or get fired, there's a contract that's still there that makes the business still comply with local laws that require your business to have. So that's the first part. The second part is we have some franchise partners here that really are just amazing at finding a license qualifier, and that's the technical term to the individual. Someone that has that license that qualifies another person or business with their license. That they handle all the paperwork, they handle the recruiting arm of that, and then they help negotiate the terms of the contract between both parties. So that's usually what the avenue that most people go. It does come at a cost. It does come at a pretty your normal recruiting costs for a headhunter and style type of operation. So and franchisees don't necessarily want to pay that cost. We don't make them, but they're usually going with another route of finding that licensed qualifier, either by grassroots approach or by reciprocity. Reciprocity is a big thing here in the world of licensing, where you might find a license holder in another state that can take the exam for this state and qualify for that person's state in most cases. Like Oklahoma reciprocates with Texas, and Oklahoma reciprocates with Salt Lake City. So you can find somebody in another state to kind of qualify that person, even though they may not actually live in the state that they are doing business within.
No, you don't, maybe I misunderstood, but you don't recommend that the franchise owner get the license ever, just to rent it for lack of a better term?
Yeah, in the process for a candidate that comes from a very different walk of life is a long process to get that license. There in almost every state, there's a time commitment of being in the trade that they have to qualify for and have somebody else sign off on that time. So just thinking about what you have to do in the state of Texas, like that's a number of years that you have to be in the trade before you can even take the journeyman exam. And then once you're being a journeyman technician, you have to have that license for a certain period of time before you can ever take your master's exam. So while it is a path, it's a longer path for most. Sometimes it can be even longer than the franchise agreement to get that license. So no, it's not something that we push unless the candidate does have some level of qualifications that they can get that sooner than later. Will we go down that route? But no, we're not really actively seeking individuals that possess that level of knowledge or time in the trades as franchise owners here.
That master license holder, do they need to be an employee of 1-800 Plumber Plus Air, or can you just rent the license itself?
Um, that's going to be, I'm going to have to digress over to like what the state requires there. Certain states will require that to be a W-2 employee. Some states will not require that. The franchise, though, does have some pretty, I wouldn't really call it requirements, but there's some strict recommendations here that that individual not be a 40-hour a week employee. Just when there's ever any contention with licensing, it's usually because the license holder for that franchise owner is also a 40-hour a week technician that's performing in the business. And we we want to kind of have a divide of church and state here. That you'll hire your employees, and that's fine. And then you have your license holder who is just on a completely separate type of agreement than someone that's working 40 hours a week. Because in the trades, and I've been in the trades now for a while, and I can say this with just my own experience, you're dealing with heightened emotions all the time. So what that means is that in any given moment, the technician can feel a certain way about their employment, maybe look for another job somewhere, and then they want to leave. And then they leave, and now you're left without a a license holder for your business because of something that didn't happen relating to the license. So our advice to franchise owners is we'll help you find an individual that is not working 40 hours a week with you. And then you go ahead and you hire those 40-hour a week employees, and let's keep that separate.
So that leads me to another question. You mentioned the cost around $300 a week, maybe depending on
Yep.
wherever. You're going to have some pretty good cash flow coming in right from the beginning to operate. So tell me about the marketing. What kind of marketing do you have to help get the phone ringing and keep the phone ringing? And then, how soon do you turn that on before the owner's ready to open their doors?
Um, Great question. Yeah, marketing is a very big piece of our puzzle. The the way that I deliver this message to my candidates is I actually like to ask a simple question. So I'll ask you two this question. If you needed a plumber here today, something happened in your home, maybe you didn't have hot water to take a shower this morning. How would you go about finding a plumber, assuming you didn't know one or have a connection with one or a family member wasn't one?
Going to Google.
Okay, Jennifer, what about you?
I'd probably ask Matt. No, I'd either Google it or I'd ask a neighbor a referral.
Okay, I like that answer. That's a great answer. But the common answer is I go to Google. That is probably a 7 out of 10 answer when I ask that question. And it's just done as an exercise because when people are looking for a service, they do act differently. But the goal here is to be everywhere where people are acting. So be where your customers are shopping for our services. That's usually the marketing message that we're sending to our candidates, right? So you have to have a strong Google presence. Undoubtedly, we have some of the best marketing providers and partners here in our franchise that really make that become a reality from day one. But I find this to be one of the most challenging parts of my job. What I'm about to tell you is candidates' approach to marketing is very fluid. In the trades, there's no right answer to this. Anybody to tell you that there is a right answer, it just simply hasn't actually operated a trades business before. So what I'm about to tell you is that as someone who owns a trades business, my marketing results from a January to February can be very different. I could do $20,000 a month on Google in January and $6,000 a month on Google in February. And I can look at that and say, well, Google sucks or Google's great, and that's just the reality of how the marketing works because people are not shopping in the same areas for our services. Some are not. Some use Yelp. I've had that answer many times. Some people will go to BNI and say, I'll go to my referral company and say, who do you recommend? Some people go to a neighbor. And that's great to hear all of that, but that just makes the whole conversation very fluid. So our marketing approach is this. We start each franchise location with 2 trucks. When you have 2 trucks and 2 technicians out in the field, you have to fill their schedule. So there is an approach of a per truck marketing budget that you have to have going into your launch period. And that starts with our marketing penetration. So you asked, when do we start? We actually start 1 month prior to their opening with marketing penetration. So there's a $15,000 expense that our franchise owners are going to have to pay, and that's 30. It starts 30 days before they launch, and it goes another 5 or 6 months after that. And that's really doing a lot of the high level market awareness for the brand coming into a new territory. So you might see that in uh, just Google display ads. You might see TV commercials, email blasts, door knockers, lawn signs. It's kind of a la carte selection of what you can do with our market penetration fund. But most are opting for some digital presence to start. And then when they start their business and the doors are open and the trucks are out in the field, their local marketing is working in conjunction with that 1 month of marketing penetration. So you have market penetration that's happening for the first 5 months, and then your local marketing is happening underneath that. And that's kind of driving a lot of that full schedule for 2 technicians to start. So then it's all on the franchisee. And this is kind of a fun part to the conversation too, because we expect our owners to wear that persona, that caricature that I was talking to you about, Matt, about, we want Pete to be known as Pete the plumber in his community, in his service area. We want that persona. We want that to happen soon for a lot of our folks, for a lot of franchise owners, and some it takes a little bit of time. But no matter what happens, that has to happen. That's part of the marketing message. In order for the hunting and farming aspect of marketing to take place, you're always hunting in the Google world. You always have to be there. But what are you doing on the farming side? And that's usually where candidates have different opinions. That's the most biggest challenge in my career, in my position, is getting to talk to some people about what they might have to do on the farming side to be successful here.
So your technicians themselves, are they cross-trained to where, a plumbing tech can also handle the HVAC side, or are you sending a HVAC certified specific tech for that and someone separate for plumbing issues?
In the majority of the country, that is a separate service. That is a separate individual. But there are pockets, specifically in the Northeast and the Northwest of the country, where those hybrid technicians do exist. An HVAC technician that can do basic plumbing, and a plumbing technician that can do mainly only heating. That does exist. So you do get some level of people coming into your talent pool that do have those traits. And when you do, those are the ones that we're actively like trying to push to the top of the list to interview.
Makes sense.
So you said you'd like to start with 2 trucks. So I assume each technician has their own truck.
So one plumber, or one plumbing tech, one HVAC tech. Is that how you start?
Not necessarily, actually. Yeah, no, great question. This is also a question that I get a lot of. We start with 2 plumbing technicians, believe it or not. So those 2 starting trucks that you're going to have are going to be 2 plumbing technicians, with the third truck being your HVAC. So the reason for that, and this is done a bit more intentional than I think it needs to be, because I think we are still a little, if you were to ask me, I'm very open-minded to allowing a candidate to start with 1 HVAC tech and 1 one plumbing truck. But it does depend on where they are. If they are in Florida or Texas, and it's mainly only a cooling season, or a cooling state, I would say, yeah, I'd be a little bit more open-minded to that than strict on just two plumbers. But for the most part, everybody starts with 2 plumbing techs, because that keeps the initial overhead costs down. You don't have another license holder on the HVAC side. You're not advertising for HVAC leads and inflating your marketing budget. You're also learning a very new business model for the very first time. Your first 90 days are going to be, no matter what franchise that your candidates choose, but in this case, this one's going to take a little bit time to get used to. It is simple, it is easy, but there's a 90-day ramp that most people need to go through. And if we're doing that, we're not expecting your expenses to be super high through the roof. By having that that extra vertical be a service. Let's learn it first on the plumbing side. And when you're comfortable, you'll add that third truck, you stock it with some inventory, and you get that license holder and you're ready to go again. It's that simple.
Are they general contractors or W-2s?
Independent.
Your employees,
I
you
mean,
mean?
yeah, I mean, independent contractors, subcontractors, sorry.
Yeah, I understood what you meant. No, we're in the W-2 pool for sure.
Okay.
What is a candidate looking at from a total initial investment?
So, we have a pretty interesting range. It ranges from 127 to around the early 300s. But what I tell people, I've been doing this a little bit longer than most, and we see most franchise owners get started at about 180 to 190 range, depending on a few slight variables in where in locale and office location and such things like that. But yeah, on sub 200,000 would be fine for a single unit.
And your requirements to get in at least a net worth of 250,000, correct? And liquidity at least 150, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
What is your avatar that you're looking for in an owner?
An avatar. That's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah. Ooh. I like a certain type of candidate now so more than ever, and that's one that has an entrepreneurial background, specifically built around managing a team of people. And this one these two attributes might shock you, but one that has the ability of speaking to blue collar workers and being able to multitask. Those are the multitask attributes, the hardest one for me to discover in our discovery process. But I make it perfectly clear that those are four of the larger attributes that we're looking for today, because the multitasking piece means a lot. You wear the hat of networker, mayor of the community in 1 hour, and the next hour you're monitoring KPIs. The next after that, you're monitoring your marketing spend and P&L management. And you have to have the skills to do all of that. We teach you a lot of that, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to come with that ability, but to be able to just enter yourself into any different type of business conversation with our franchise support team is very important to have. People that are lackadaisical in any of those areas are often either not chosen to be a part of this franchise, or the ones that we see that need the most help in certain areas. The blue collar talking part, though, is what most people ask me about. What do you mean by that? They say, they'll say to me, like, what? I know how to talk to blue collar guys. I'm like, well, I didn't. When I first started in this business, I had absolutely no idea what I was in store for. In fact, I have some funny stories that would be shocking to most people. Like, plumbers coming to a Zoom interview, lifting weights in the gym and expecting me to conduct the interview while they're pumping iron. And another one that's on a park bench and eating a sub and saying, like, yeah, I'm just on my break. How long is this going to be? 15 minutes? Like, no, I was hoping it was going to be like an hour. And these personality types, this is just how they are. This is how they act. These people are great individuals, but this is all that they know. This is all that they've been used to throughout their entire career, 25 years of being this way. So when you have a white collar candidate and they see that, they're immediately turned off. But you got to look past all of that. You got to look past the mud of this person and get to the point where you can relate to this individual. So speaking the blue collar language, being that type of guy that can, hey, let's put the gloves on. Let me ride in the truck with you, and let me experience what you go through in the truck. That's not something that most people are comfortable doing. I know I wasn't when I first started, and now it's all I basically do is talk that blue collar language and really get better and better at it. So we talk a lot about that, and I hope that answered your question. But that's ideally that person that has run a business, that has managed people, that can easily step into both personas, white collar and blue collar alike, and be able to multitask.
Well, we're about out of time, and we really didn't even touch on the fantastic technology that your franchisees take advantage of. So I'll save that for when we send our candidates your way.
Teaser.
Yeah. You already answered the ramp up time. do you allow for semi-passive from the beginning, or do you prefer active owners?
Yeah, we do. We look at people that have a W-2 wage that might be able to fit this into their daily life somehow. So what does that mean? Like, I'm really looking for people that are looking for semi-passive, I don't like to use the word semi-absentee. That implies that they cannot be there, but that executive model, someone that could step in and manage people when needed around their work schedule. So maybe they're in a remote position, some sort of hybrid position. That's usually when that works really well.
Was there anything we didn't touch on that you would like everyone to know?
Yeah, there's probably one big thing there that I'd like to just harp on. We probably have a lot to discuss with your candidates because there's a lot that we didn't, but this one's a big one. Uh, our approach to franchise support is second to none. This is actually what made me so knowledgeable in this space. 5 years ago, I was a graphic designer in making signs for a living. That's what I did for 20 years of my career. Stepping into a home services franchise for the first time, I've never ran a plumbing company before. I've never run a trades business before. So understanding the nuances, the minutia details of what goes into this business, along with the lingo, the vernacular, the tools that everybody's using, I had to learn it all from the ground up. But guess what? Every single candidate, every single franchisee that is awarded a franchise has to do the same. So I've been in their shoes. I understand what they're going to be going through. And one thing that I can say, and yes, the technology is a big piece to this puzzle, but the franchise support that they get here is intimate. It's actually very comfortable to see because they go and they start every meeting with the same question. How could we help? And that question prompts candidates to go into those meetings with, I need some help. I need to tell them what I need help with and what is it that I need help with. We're asking for it on a week by week basis. And that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that our franchise support is so intimate that we're involved in their operation on a weekly basis. So that means our coaches are master plumbers. They've ran 1-800 plus air locations before. They know what this model is all about. It's not like we're handing them off to some entry level franchise business coach that's going to take them the first year. The first coach that they ever have is Mike Collins, co-owner of the franchise. For the first year, he is their coach. So he meets with them every single week at their same regular day and time, and they go through the business model week after week, understanding every little thing that's going on, including things like how much gas they spent this past week on just driving around, how many useless miles their technicians were driving to and from their next appointments, where the profits are being made, where the profits are being lost. These are all things that our coaches are showing them on a week by week basis to make them become better each and every week, because a lot can happen in a trades business on a weekly basis, from recruiting to screwing up a project to being on site and canceling appointments. It's a nightmare. So if you go 1 month without speaking to your coach, we have absolutely no idea where we're at. So that's why we very much meet with our franchises every week. And that's what starts to instill the knowledge, support, training in our franchises. And we're building strength from within by doing it that way.
I love to hear that.
love
And I love the fact that the co-founder is still heavily involved in those first 12 months, because that's what's most impactful for any new owner is, I mean, obviously having the support and structure of a franchise long-term is, a huge benefit, but those first 12 months, that's when, you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, because it's coming at you so fast. And to have a calming voice that started the company to be there to guide you, to coach you, and point out things
That's
that
correct.
you're doing, that's a huge benefit.
Well, I will say I've never thought I would want to own a plumbing franchise, but now
But
I
now
think we
you
need, now I think we need one. It's, I don't know. All right, Peter, I've actually learned a lot. I'm going to be setting much better expectations for our candidates that we're sending you. I love this brand. I think there's unlimited potential. Recession resistant, like you said, it's we love it. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, we appreciate it very much. And if you have an interest in learning more about 1-800-PLUS-AIR, feel free to shoot me a text 270-215-2844. I'll get with Peter. We'll find out if your market is available and then discuss next steps. So thanks, Peter.
Bye.
Really
Peter.
appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.